Hey College Success, this is your video for week 5 that runs from September 28th through October 4th. So this week, as I said, we are in week 5 and we're going to be in chapter 4. So we are now halfway through the semester. As a reminder, your final project was introduced previously. So when you get into your lessons tab, there is a folder just for final projects, and there's another link to the directions. And there's the video for steps 1 and 2. I will be opening up the video for steps 3 and 4 during week 5. So you'll have access to 4 out of the 5 steps here because your final project is due in week 8. So you should be thinking about it and getting started very soon. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back down here. We're going to be in week 5, chapter 4. As you can see, we have 4 assignments due this week, and then the step 3 and step 4, the final project, is in a separate video where I just showed you to find it in the lessons area. So first we're going to get into materials folder, and we're going to open up the slides, and you can see I also have another link to the final project directions there. So I'm going to open up the slides for chapter 4, and this is about strengthening your soft skills. Now we've talked a little bit about soft skills before. Soft skills, also known as transferable skills, are those skills that, just like the name implies, can be transferred from basically any career field to another because they are important and essential no matter what field you're in. So here are some examples of some soft skills, and your chapter does talk more about these, but things like being professional, being on time, your organizational skills, critical thinking, leadership, those are all considered soft skills. So again, I know I said this before, but your technical skills, your know-how in your field will get you a job, but your soft skills really are part of keeping your job and making you kind of move up the ranks, so to speak, because employers really value these soft skills. So there does go through this little thing talking about like, what is professionalism? What does that look like? Well, it's going to vary from field to field for sure. There are different ideas of professionalism depending on the field you're in, but generally professionalism in every field does mean like you're responsible, you're respectful, you work with other people nicely. So it's kind of the general idea of professionalism. Now, this next couple of slides and in the textbook, it talks about sending professional emails. So because I do not know any of you personally, whenever you have a all online class, it's really important to be professional in your written communication. And so chapter 4 does talk about, making sure that you're professional in that written component, since really that's your first impression to employers. Like when you send your resume, it's written. When you send an email inquiring about a job, when you're in an online class, all of those things are really important to come across as professional, since that's the only impression you get to make up to that point. So you'll see more about that in your chapter 4. Also in chapter 4, it talks about time management. I don't know if anyone struggles with time management. I know a lot of my face-to-face students do, and they say that that's something that they constantly need to work on. So when you are thinking about your time management, you want to think about your goals, and are you using your time in a way that's consistent with the goals that you have set? If your goal is to get like a 3.3 GPA this semester, are you using your time to study, to plan, to schedule, or are you using your time in different ways that's not productive? Do you have a good balance? If you're working, do you have a nice work-school life balance? You'll see some research will say, and this is going to be in a couple of slides, the ideal number of hours, and we're going to talk about this in a couple of slides here for that one. Are you planning and engaging in things, and how can you improve your use of time? I will admit that I am a Netflix binger. I like to binge certain shows on Netflix, and so that is something that I have to kind of look out for. So I will usually spend my evenings after my children go to bed like grading and responding to emails, and then I know after that I can turn on Netflix. I can watch a couple episodes of a show. So things like that, making sure that you're aware of your time traps and adjusting as necessary. So matching your use of time with values. Again, like how do you spend your time? One of the assignments this class used to require, and what you're doing this week is kind of like a miniature version of this, is tracking your time for a week, like actually having like a log, and you spend some time every couple hours or every evening and seeing how did you spend your time that day? Was it productive? What could you have done differently? And just kind of really taking an analysis of your time. So if you feel like you are too drawn into time traps. And by time traps, I mean things that you spend way too much time on. So we all need to relax. We need to rest. We need to relax. We need to have recreation. But there comes a certain point where sometimes we cross that line between recreation to just kind of, I don't want to say laziness, but procrastination. So for instance, watching TV is okay, but then if you're sitting there for hours watching TV when you know you have a paper due or you have a test coming up, that becomes a time trap. So you want to know what your time traps are. Are they TV? Are your time traps your phone, social media? Is it spending too much time with friends when you should be studying? So making sure you're aware of your time traps, and then impose some time limits. Like, okay, I'm going to play, video games for an hour, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the evening, working, or vice versa. If I work for X amount of time, I'm going to allow myself, time on the computer or time on my phone. So different ways to kind of look at time traps. And then work, school, life balance. So the textbook will say an ideal amount of hours to work is actually 20 hours, around 20 hours. Now I know that's not feasible for everyone. That's either too much or too little, depending on what your life circumstance. The research, and again, there's always outliers, there's always exceptions, but in general, the research found that students who were working full-time or more than full-time were really overwhelmed, and they did not have a good work-life-school balance. And then they found students who did not work at all, they weren't working, they were just going to school, almost had too much time, and so they procrastinated because they thought they could get to it eventually, and then they would run out of time because they didn't manage it well. So they found that students who generally work around 19 to 20, 21 hours had the best balance because they were prioritizing between work and school. Now again, there are different exceptions to that, and everyone's situation is different, but it's just something to think about, making sure that you strike the balance that's right for you. And then we also go into combating procrastination. So if you are a procrastinator, how can you, manage that? If you have a research paper due, you might be procrastinating, but if you break it down into small tasks, it's a little bit more manageable. So for instance, if your research paper is due next month, then, for the first couple of nights, you just work on finding sources. And the next couple of nights, you work on doing an outline, and then you work on doing your rough draft. So if you break it down, it's a little bit more manageable, and then reward yourself, for going through those steps. Also, you want to avoid multitasking. There's been a lot of studies on this. Now, as humans, we are very natural multitaskers. We can watch TV while we cook. We can listen to music while we drive. However, this is talking about like academic multitasking. So watching TV while also doing homework, or texting on your phone while sitting in class listening to a lecture. It's usually going to take you longer to complete a task, and the task is going to be less polished and effective when you multitask. So you'll see a little study talking about how multitasking impacts you as well as the people around you, because it can really deter you from focusing, and it draws your attention elsewhere. So instead of multitasking, you want a single task. Give your full attention to the current task, remove distractions so that you are making sure that you're doing one thing at a time academically. Then our chapter starts going into interpersonal skills, which involves things such as communication. And we know communication involves more than just actual verbal talking. It's also the nonverbal, the eye contact. Eye contact now is more important than ever, since we're often using, our masks in public, and so that's all we can see is eyes. But, also like being open-minded, being friendly, those are all part of the communication skills. You're also going to see in this chapter different ways for handling conflict. So you'll see there's 5 different styles. And as you read this section, you might see kind of where you fall into, or maybe there's a couple of different styles you fall into, or it could just depend on the people you're with. You might use the dominating style in one circumstance, but then the avoiding style in another. So it'll be interesting as you read that section to see where you fall. Our chapter also talks about emotional intelligence, being able to not only perceive and understand and manage your own emotions, but as well as the emotions of others. So picking up on when someone else is frustrated, when someone else is excited, and being able to kind of manage and react to those things. Finally, we start kind of winding up the chapter with teamwork and collaboration, the importance of working with other people. And they touch on this 5R approach to group work. So if you are in a situation where you have to work with other people, this 5R approach kind of gives you this model to follow. Get to know your group members. What are the rules for your group? who is going to take on what kind of roles, support one another, and then monitor your progress. So that's the 5R, and it's supposed to make your group experience a little bit more smooth, effective, and efficient. We also talk about diversity and cultural competence, just knowing that, we are a very diverse society. And so being aware of other cultures, maybe learning about the people's cultures that you are closely working with, and making sure that you are being respectful of those. Which goes into reducing stereotype threat. You'll read a little bit about this and kind of an interesting theories in this involving stereotype threat. And then finally, and this is going to be the basis of one of your assignments this week, leadership skills. Your chapter will talk about leadership, the different kinds of styles, and the chapter says that a transformational leader is actually one that is kind of like the most beneficial, someone who's charismatic, they are respectful, they motivate, they inspire, and they stimulate someone intellectually. All right, so that is chapter 4. PowerPoint. Again, I always encourage you to go back into your actual textbook and look at the sections, particularly that you feel like you need to learn more about or could benefit you more as you work. All right, so here are your assignments this week. As always, you have a discussion post. So just as a reminder, for week 5 attendance, you are posting your original response by Wednesday. That's the 30th by 11:55 p.m. And then you're responding to 2 classmates by Sunday, October 4th. All the other assignments are also due by Sunday, the 4th. So I'm going to scroll down and walk you through what you're doing this week. So assignments, here is your discussion forum. So this kind of touches off right where we left off in the PowerPoint on leaders. So remember, your discussion forums are 250 words. I teach this class face-to-face, and instead of discussion forums, these are journal prompts. So their journals are 250 words, so that's why you have that word limit. It also helps you kind of get ready for, if you haven't already, like College Comp, academic writing, since they have word minimums as well. So for your discussion post, you're identifying a leader, and this could be someone at the national level, state level, local level, someone in your community, maybe at your school, at your church, at a rec center. So any kind of leader, just let me know who it is. Why do you think this person is a leader? What do they do? What kind of qualifications do they have? How do they demonstrate their leadership? What kind of themes do emerge? As you describe them, are you like, oh man, this is all kind of centering on the fact that they're very kind or they're very motivational? And then what's something that you would like to develop based on that leader that you chose? You're like, the leader that I chose is a really great public speaker, and that's something that I struggle with, and I really want to develop this. So you're going to talk about a leader, whoever it might be. And I also want to just remind you, because everyone is seeing this, just please be respectful of, whatever person chooses as a leader, that is their choice. And so we'll just respect choices, because I have had students before kind of argue with the leaders that they've seen chosen. So that's why you want to just make sure why you believe that person is a leader. So give us some context, and then tell us what's something you would like to kind of glean from that leader. What would you like to develop? So that's your chapter 4 discussion. Original post by Wednesday, responded to classmates by Sunday. Next assignment, where did the time go? So this is what I mentioned before. We used to do like a time analysis. This is kind of like a mini version of that. So you'll click on this document and it's going to open up into here. All right. So you're going to estimate how you spend your time for a 1-week period. Again, you're not tracking and you're not having to write down specific details, but I want you to think about a typical week. And I know with COVID, most of the time we're not in typical weeks anymore. So kind of just do the best you can and think about how many hours a day you do these things. So classwork, so like how many hours are you in class, and then also include your studying. How many hours a day times 7, because you might study on the weekends as well. How many hours do you work a day? How much do you time to get ready and travel and appointments and eating and sleep? So look at those categories. And if you have another category, you can certainly add it in. Now, if you are multitasking, so for instance, you are eating a meal while you're also watching TV, please just write down whatever one you are doing the most of, so you're not like double dipping, so to speak. So if you're really eating, but you just happen to have the TV on in the background, include that time in your meal time. You should then add up all your hours a week, and there are 168 hours in a week. So you should not have any more than that. Hopefully you don't have like significantly less. So you can kind of look and see how many hours did this capture in a week. I often have students who they come up around 150 hours or maybe like 160. So look to see how many hours. That's the first part of it. Part B then is to analyze that time. What activity takes up most of your time? Don't include sleep. So of your time spent awake, what's being spent on? Do you think it's a productive way to spend your time? Why or why not? Can you change anything to be more efficient, or do you think you're doing a pretty good job? And then did you learn anything new about your time management after like kind of looking to see how you're spending it? So you'll save that and you'll Dropbox it right inside there. That's a 20-point assignment. All right, your next assignment is your Chapter 4 quiz. So we're getting the hang of these. You guys are doing really well doing your 2 to 5 sentences. So, just go through and answer. Some of them, again, are straightforward. Some of them have a little setup on it. So just make sure you're answering all the questions in 2 to 5 complete sentences. Most of these questions are actually pretty quick. That's your Chapter 4 quiz. Your last assignment is your resource reflection on the Writing Center. So I have a video embedded in here, and it's only like, I think like a 6-minute video. Yeah, well, almost, okay, a little under 7 minutes. So you'll watch that video, and if you want, you could also go to the Stark State homepage under Info for Current Students, and you'll see there's a link for the Writing Center as well. It tells you the hours, a little bit of information on it, and there's an online Writing Center, which hopefully should be helpful, this semester as we are online. Now, it took me right in because I already have a registry, like I'm already registered, I'm signed in, so you will be asked to like create an account or sign in. But this will show you kind of how you can make an appointment for the Writing Center. You can see when there are tutors on campus or online, and you can sign up for a writing appointment. So there's that. Also, I wanted to show you in My Stark State, under your academic support tab, you also have a link to the Writing Center, and it's going to take you to another page. It's going to give you some more information. It's going to give you some sources, like there might be some pamphlets in here. They have a Google Drive for a lot of this. So that's another place you can go in and see. So I encourage you to kind of look all over. Watch that video, go to the Writing Center in My Stark State, take a look at the Writing Center online. So after you've done that, let me get back in here, you will take your reflection. Remember, a resource reflection, this is something we are still struggling with. I don't need you to summarize. I already know what the Writing Center is. I know what they provide. What would benefit you? You can talk about how maybe you struggled with thesis or you've struggled with conclusions, and you could utilize the Writing Center for that, or you can go, and I said, look at My Stark State and look and see, look at these pamphlets. Maybe you can benefit from looking through some of these pamphlets. Watch that video that is posted and see what is helpful in there. So again, it's not a summary. It is how you could utilize the resource as a college student, how it's beneficial, what particular is helpful to you. And that's a paragraph long. All right, so again, week 5, chapter 4, make sure you complete your time analysis assignment, your Writing Center reflection, your effective leader discussion post by Wednesday and responded to classmates by Sunday, and your chapter 4 quiz. And then again, your steps 3 and 4 final project are located in your final project video folder in the lessons area. You can watch that video as you prepare for your final project due in week 8. All right, hope everyone has a great week. Bye.